Hi, I'm Trista Harris, and I'm the host of Fast Forward, and I love to interview visionary leaders that are changing the world. And today, I get to interview one of the most visionary leaders, Sir Richard Branson, who runs the Virgin Group. Richard, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for your interest.
So I would love to start way back to when you were just a little kid. Can you tell me a little bit about your first act of philanthropy, even as you were young or early in your career?
I remember a time when I was very young, walking down the street with my sister in Oxford Street, and there was somebody living on the street. And anyway, on the spur of the moment, I took my clothes off and gave them to this person, and then I ran home in my underwear as quickly as I could. Fortunately, I had a slightly better body, I think, in those days than I did today. But anyway, from a young age, I've seen things going on in the world that I felt were wrong. I mean, the Vietnamese War was raging when I was 15, and we felt passionately it was an unjust war. I think history has proven it to be an unjust war, and so I left school to start a magazine to campaign against it, and through the magazine, a lot of young people came to us with problems, and we decided to set up a centre to help young people with all sorts of problems, all the kinds of problems that young people have, and that was a fantastic education for me in learning and meeting hundreds of young people with hundreds of different kinds of problems, and I think. It made me more sympathetic towards people, so it was good.
That's wonderful. Tell me a little bit about what social issues you're most passionate about now. As an entrepreneur, I've been a sort of serial entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I've now become like a serial philanthropist. So when I see a problem in the world, we set up an organization to try to tackle it. Obviously, if you have conflict in the world, everything breaks down. I mean, schools, health, people's well-being, etc. So we set up an organisation called the Elders with Nelson Mandela and President Carter and Kofi Annan and Mary Robinson and others, and they go into conflict regions and try to resolve conflicts. And then on the back of that, we've set up something called the Oceanic Elders that are trying to protect the oceans and trying to create more nature parks and more marine reserves, and campaign and lobby on behalf of the sharks and the rays and other species that are being slaughtered in massive numbers in the oceans. And I could carry on. I mean, we feel strongly that. We're part of something called the Global Drug Commission, that drugs should be treated as a health problem, not a criminal problem. So we go out to try to lobby governments and change laws to try to, say to these politicians, look, would you rather your brothers or sisters or children were sent to prison if they had a drug problem, or would you rather they were helped? And taking that approach, we're trying to change minds. And American prisons are full of people who've taken drugs, and it's very sad. Climate change is another issue. Spend a lot of time and effort on that through the Carbon War Room and the B Team, and lobbying governments again. We were in Paris trying to make sure that any dithering government like India or China came into the fold, and positive new ground rules were set in Paris. So it's been fascinating, a lot of fun tackling a lot of different diverse issues. It feels like you're picking the hardest possible issues that you could work on in philanthropy. Can you talk a little bit about why you take big bets instead of working on some things that might be easier to solve?
We do take on some smaller projects as well, but I suppose I've thought big and bold in business, like whether it's space travel or starting airlines or train companies, or so
I think if you're in a position in life to be able to think big and think bold, and you've got the financial resources, you'd be irresponsible not to. And I suppose I find it more enjoyable as well.
It's a lot funner to solve big problems than smaller ones.
Well, yeah. I mean, to go out there to solve big problems, and sometimes we'll fall flat on our face, sometimes we'll succeed.
I think there's a lot of worry about failure in philanthropy, and I think that's a reason why people don't take these big bets, and you kind of miss all the shots you don't take. So I'm glad that you're doing that big work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of philanthropists have to prove to the people who've given them the money that they have succeeded year in, year out in whatever they've set out to achieve. If you're setting out to to save the oceans, or lobby governments to change laws and things, there can be some things which are more difficult to sort of put your finger on it, and therefore it maybe needs people to use their own money to tackle those kinds of issues.
That's fantastic. So when you started Virgin Unite, what did you hope would happen?
Sorry about the plastic bottle.
There you go. Not good for the environmental message. But as you started that, what did you hope would happen as a result, and what have been some of your surprises along the way?
We wanted to start an organisation where all 80,000 people who work for Virgin could feel really proud of, and an organisation that made a big difference in lots of different areas, and an organisation that went all out to make sure that people's lives are better. So, and also an organisation that took risks, that didn't, we'll lobby on for people who haven't really got a voice. So, we lobby to try to get companies to take on ex-convicts, because if they're given the dignity of work, they generally don't offend again. We're lobbying right now to try to stop the death penalty on a global basis, because we believe that it demeans everybody in the country if executions continue to carry on. And again, where countries like Europe banned it 50 or 60 years ago, you haven't seen a rise in crime. And I think it costs less. It does. There's just so many good reasons to get rid of it. So slightly more unfashionable issues we take on, as well as the more conventional issues.
So in 2005, you pledged all of the proceeds from your transportation companies to alleviate global warming and identify new alternative sources of energy. How did you come to that decision, and how was that met in the field?
Well, the carbon is what is damaging the world, and therefore it's very important that we can come up with ways of producing fuels that if possible, are not going to damage the world. So we spend quite a lot of time and effort and money in trying to invest in clean fuels for airlines rather than dirty fuels for airlines. And in fact, our spaceship company now got a team of people. We've got a 747 there, and we're trying to see whether we can run that 747 on completely clean fuels, and fuels that won't eat into the food supply, and that's another prerequisite if possible. So, so maybe algae-based fuels or something like that. And I think we've invested in a lot of clean energy projects. It's tougher than conventional businesses, particularly with fuel prices being at $40 a barrel, $30 a barrel. But now that the governments have set the ground rules, 2050 carbon neutral, I think there are, I think people can make decent money from investing in clean energy, and the price of solar has come down incredibly low. So hopefully we can get a thriving clean energy business going.
That's fantastic. In your letter to the Giving Pledge, you said that you were honored to be part of a group that was working across sector to create change on radical issues. Can you talk a lot about why that cross-sector piece is so important?
Well, simply there are so many different problems in the world. If you're deaf and a hearing aid could make you hear again, there should be somebody there who's dealing with that, and there are some wonderful organisations dealing with that. And I've had the pleasure of putting a hearing aid on a child who'd never heard his mother talk, and the scream of joy when his mother said something to him. If you're blind but you could be able to see again, it's just terribly wrong that for $200, little cataract operation, you might be able to see again. And so it goes on and on and on. And therefore, I think the cross-sector is important in the charitable world as it is in the entrepreneurial world. It's just people getting in there and trying to solve the problems, all the problems. Clean water, you name it. It's fantastic the amount of wonderful organisations that are diving in there these days.
Wonderful. So which of your philanthropic or corporate efforts do you think will have the longest lasting impact on humanity? No pressure.
Yeah, it's impossible to say. I mean, I would hope that the elders are still going in 200 years' time. The Kofi Annan now chairs the elders. Before that it was Archbishop Tutu, before that it was Nelson Mandela. And I very much hope that they're not having to deal with more conflicts, but they can be the moral voice of the world. And the people who will be elders will be those people with high moral authority who've proven in their lifetime that they can live with dignity and they'll have the voice of the world. They can speak out on issues that need an honest word or two.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for all that you're doing to make the world a better place. It's much appreciated.